Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 481, and today's date is October 1st, 2014, and the title of this episode is Ebola in U.S., Will It Be Used to Declare Martial Law? Now, we understand that Ebola now is basically in West Africa. It's in those nations where there's a huge amount of natural resources which were recently discovered, and Ebola hasn't really gone over the border to any other country inside of Africa, which is very strange in itself. But we do have a man who traveled from Liberia, and he was infected, and it is now confirmed. And it seems like there's a second patient, which they're trying to see if that person has Ebola. Now, of course, as we know, Ebola, from all the evidence, shows that Ebola was created by the United States government, certain different agencies, the Department of Defense, and we can see that they've been using it in West Africa to decimate the economies in there so they can bring troops in, put all of these countries on the hook with these central bankers, and this is exactly what they're doing there at this point in time. Now, the other agendas for Ebola could be martial law here in the United States, because as we know, the government officials, this has been part of their agenda all along, to suspend the Constitution, to declare martial law, to make sure they lock down the people and control the people. And this, of course, this is why they have DHS. This is why they infiltrated all the local police stations and different areas. And we can see right now that this could be part of their agenda, where they're building up the fear factor at this point, making everyone believe that, yes, Ebola is now in the United States and it's going to spread. Now, does it really have to spread? No, they can use the fear to say, you know what, to contain this, we need to declare martial law, and they can definitely do this, and we can see it actually happening. Now, of course, as we know, there are certain CDC locations all around the country. They just so happen to correlate with where they're sending the illegals at this time, but they're all around the country. They're also getting funeral homes and other places prepped for an Ebola breakout. They also, as we know, ordered about 160 hazmat suits, and we can see right now that this is being prepped. This really doesn't have to go live. It could really be pushed by using fear and just showing that there are many different cases going on that are contracting Ebola. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we go through this report. But let's get into the economic collapse news here. Now, we understand Eurozone, the United States, all the data that is coming out now is really, really horrible at this point in time. We see in the Eurozone, manufacturing growth slows again in September. New orders contracted for the first time in over a year on dwindling demand at home and from abroad. Factories also cut prices last month for the first time since April. Market's final September manufacturing PMI came in at 50.3, the lowest since July last year, and below both August 50.7. So we can see right now Europe is completely being decimated. We understand that youth unemployment is continually going up. Regular unemployment is continually going up, and we're starting to see a slowdown around the private Western Central Bank countries. And we're not just seeing this in Europe. We're seeing it here in the United States also. I mean, we're also seeing more and more layoffs. We see General Mills, they're going to be laying off another 700 to 800 people. New York Times is going to be laying off about 100 newsroom jobs. And this is continuing. The trend is continuing where more and more companies are laying off. We see Kmart closing many, many stores. And we're going to see pretty much Sears, JCPenney's, Radio Shack, and many other stores go out of business because they are depending on this Christmas season. And let me just say right now, people are unemployed, underemployed, more layoffs are down the road. Last year, Christmas was absolutely horrible. This year, it's going to be horrific. And these stores will not be able to make it, and we could say goodbye to those stores completely, and we're going to have a lot more retail space open up around the country. And this is just going to make it absolutely much, much worse as time goes on. Now, the U.S. manufacturing was actually far weaker than expected. The ISM confirmed that we had been what we've been saying all along, and that what we've been talking about, that Right now, the PMI dropped from 59 to only 56.6, which was the biggest miss since January. New orders completely tumbled from 66.7 to only 60, and the unadjusted print matching the lowest since March. Employment sliding from 58.1 to 54.6, and backlogs dropping back into contraction from 52.5 to 47. Now, of course, today in the corporate media, a lot of the automobile industry is coming in saying, yes, we have record car sales. Everything looks great. Ford, theirs was a little bit down. But what happened was the subprime market pushed the automobile industry up. And believe me, this is a bubble ready to burst. This is a one-time thing. They cannot sustain this, and eventually what you're going to see is the automobile industry completely slide and crash at the bottom. And you have to remember, the automobile industry has been channel stuffing many of the dealer lots to keep the manufacturing going, but now the lots are full. They're just trying to unload these cars. They're giving incentives. Anyone that has a heartbeat will be approved to take a car, and we're starting to see delinquencies on the rise. We're seeing the repo man out there collecting the cars for those people who cannot make payments. Now, in the real estate market, what we're seeing is that U.S. construction spending post a surprise decline in August. I love when they use these words like it's a surprise, like it's unexpected, out of nowhere. I don't understand where this happened, but we know exactly what happened. Let's see. Mortgage applications are in decline. Refinance applications are in decline. Major banks, mortgage companies have been laying off people because they know the American people are not taking out mortgages. Pending existing home sales declining. The only thing that was up were new home orders, and now we see a decrease in construction spending. The construction spending dropped by 0.8%. Wait until we go into September, October, November. This is going to completely crash. Real estate market is doomed right now. The investors, hedge funds, foreign investors, they are completely out of the market. They're trying to sell off what they have. They're no longer using cash to keep it propped up because they realize the real estate market is tumbling down. And Kay Schiller had pointed out that prices now are starting to drop. We're not seeing an acceleration anymore. We're seeing a deceleration. And this is exactly what I've been seeing all around the country. I use Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. Zillow is nice because it gives you a top view of what's been going on, and you can see the homes very quickly. And I go and I looked in the northeast, the south, the west, and you look in all these different areas, and you see houses on the market for a very long time. Prices starting to drop. Now, of course, this is not happening in every single place. Some places are still showing that houses are going up, and people are still trying to get in there, but eventually what's going to happen, this is going to spread all across the country, and these homes are going to start to fall, and things are really going to start looking bad all over the place. And we can see that this is going to be ramped up as time goes on. Now, in Russia, the second biggest lender is reducing their dollar loans. Russia's second biggest bank, VTB, has reduced its U.S. dollar lending. And this is coming from Andrei Kostin, one of the bank's officials. Kostin has been advocating moving away from the dollar for a long time. And of course, what they're doing is they're trying to move away from this and get into rubles, yuan, and other currencies because they realize the dollar is completely doomed. Now, we had it was like yesterday or day before, we had the World Bank out there telling us that the global economy looks really, really weak and it doesn't really look good. Now we have the OECD giving us a warning. The economies across the globe are facing a slow growth, high unemployment, and growing inequalities, problems that have aggravated significantly over the past month. And this is coming from the Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. We just put our interim economic assessment, and it's not pretty. We are looking at slow growth. We have high unemployment, and it looks like the economies are in a decline. But practically in every single large economy of the world, we are looking at a downgrade of growth. We have growing inequalities. Inequalities have never been as high as they are today, and we have a very serious destruction of trust, of confidence in the institutions that we have built over the last 100 years. I'm talking here about parliaments, political parties, prime ministers, presidents, ministers, international organizations, banking systems, and multi-internationals. So we can see right now they understand what's happening here. The system is completely crumbling apart, falling apart, and it is collapsing, and they realize this. The governments in Europe, the government here in the United States realize that this is completely falling apart, and this is why they've been pushing for war. This is why they've been moving military assets all over the place. This is why they've created the Euro police. This is why Spain has ordered riot gear. This is why London has ordered water cannons. This is why the United States has created DHS and pretty much infiltrated all the local police departments across the country to be in compliance with them, because they realize what is coming and they understand what is coming, because they understand once the system comes down and people pretty much don't understand what's going on, are going to say, wait a minute, my money is worth, my currency is worth absolutely nothing, and you're going to see runs in the supermarket. You're going to see people very, very desperate, and they know that riots are going to really pick up, especially in the big cities, and this is why they are definitely getting prepared. Now, in the UK, the Tories are pledging that if they win the next election in the UK, they will establish a list of extremists that will have to have their social media posts approved in advance by the police before they post them. What? So basically, there is no more freedom of speech. There are also plans to ban extremists from broadcasting and speaking at public events. The stated goal of these proposals is to crack down on terrorism. Yeah, right. But in a process, the civil liberties of the British people are going to be flushed down the toilet. The Home Secretary will also introduce banning orders for extremist groups, which would make it a criminal offense to be a member or raise funds for a group that spreads or promotes hatred. The maximum sentence could be up to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, in the United States, is continually marching down the same exact road, trying to get rid of the rights of the people, trying to say that, yes, we have a list of everyone that's going to be a domestic terrorist. Those people who talk about the government and don't agree with the government, yes, you are domestic terrorists. We see Dianne Feinstein trying to pass a bill or push a bill in Congress where they will choose, the government will choose who is a journalist and who is not a journalist and who can speak about the news. So we see the same exact thing happening here in the U.S. that's happening in the U.K. And a document which was released by the U.S. Army details preparations for a full-scale riot within the United States, during which troops may be forced to engage in lethal response to deal with unruly crowds of demonstrators. The training manual outlines scenarios under which civil unrest may range from simple nonviolent protests that address specific issues to events that turn into full-scale riots. Now, we understand Occupy Wall Street. DHS was looking to take out some of those people with snipers, and we understand this from certain documents. And we can see right now there is a list of those people who are considered potential terrorists. And here are some of them. Those that talk about individual liberties, those that advocate for state rights, the Patriot movement, anyone that is opposed to the New World Order, anyone that is engaged in conspiracy theorizing, anyone that is opposed to Agenda 21, anyone that is concerned about FEMA camps, anyone that fears impending gun control or weapons confiscation, anyone that suddenly acquires weapons, those that are suspicious of centralized federal authority, those that believe in the right to bear arms, anyone that is engaged in ammunition stockpiling. So you can see right now the list of those people are pretty much all those people who oppose of what the government is doing, oppose the government taking away our rights, oppose of pushing us into wars that we really don't want to go into because it has nothing to do with us. And you can see right now those people who are a threat to the authority, This is why they have NSA. This is why they have the fusion centers. This is why the FBI has facial recognition and DNA collection. This is why they have the Real ID. They want to correlate all this data and create a social profile of each person and understand who they are, what they're doing, and what groups they belong to, because when the time is right, they will be coming after those people. And again, those people are a threat to the authority of the government. You see already in the White House where this person jumped over the fence, got through all the sensors, made it into the White House, and it looks like they went further than was being told to everyone. And it looks like the Secret Service uh, minister resigned right now. And we can see right now the only way this person got through is because they were let through. And the reason why they're doing this is they want to build fortification around the White House, and you can see it's already starting. They have a lock on the door now that automatically locks. They're pushing a buffer zone with an additional fence, and now what they're going to do is they're going to take this even further. They'll probably put a huge wall around it, and they'll probably start doing this to many other government buildings because they realize when the people are angry, pissed off at the government and the central bankers, they're going to want the authorities to be removed, and they understand this. They know what is coming. Now, to take this a step further, it looks like the Department of Justice partnered with the Department of Homeland Security and the National Counterterrorism Center to launch a new domestic surveillance program. This program seeks to expand the surveillance dragnet by training community leaders to monitor their communities for signs of radicalization. Look for domestic terrorists. Look for those people who have illegal firearms or just firearms at all. Tell on everybody, and we will investigate. And you can see exactly what they're doing. They want people in the neighborhoods to tell on their neighbors. We already have it in New York. Hey, if you suspect someone having an illegal firearm, just report them. Even if you have no evidence whatsoever, report them and we'll start an investigation. And if they are illegal, you'll get $500. If not, we're still going to take away their weapons. This is exactly what's going on. In New York, they had the pretty much stop and frisk policy, but of course that was unconstitutional. Detroit has the stop and frisk policy where they completely violate your rights, and we can see that this is starting to build up, and they want everyone to turn on each other. This is their plan to get everyone to basically be a snitch on each other, and it makes their job a lot easier when this occurs. So it looks like right now we have maybe 2 cases of Ebola, and it looks like the Ebola patient that is confirmed came in contact with others. A male patient who traveled to Dallas from Liberia is quarantined at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital. He is the first person diagnosed with Ebola in the U.S. as CDC disease detectives arrived in Texas. Several children whom the patient came in contact with are being monitored at home. Patients arrived in U.S. on September 20th after flying from Liberia via Brussels and Belgium, but did not develop symptoms until September 24th. He attended a Texas Health Presbyterian on September 26th, but was dismissed with antibiotics. He was rushed to the hospital for vomiting 2 days later. The Dallas County Health Department was forced to deny that a second male patient was being closely monitored today after media reports. Up to 12 people could be infected with Ebola, including 5 children at this point. And the man is in serious but stable condition. He's up and talking, and we can see right now that this is going to be a problem if it actually does spread. Now, what's very interesting, we have only seen cases and the outbreaks in those countries that have recent natural resource discoveries, and China and Russia are in these countries. It is in Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Congo, Senegal, and we can see that in these countries what we have is the amount of deaths. In Guinea, it's about 481 people. And confirmed people who have Ebola is about 876 in there. Liberia, 914 confirmed, 792 deaths. Now, of course, the people who are suspected or probable, which are not confirmed, that total is much higher. And I think a lot of these numbers are getting out there, and they're not really the confirmed and the death numbers. I think they're the probable suspected numbers, because if you look at this, Liberia, the probable suspected is about 2,544 people that might have it but are not confirmed. And the probable suspected deaths is 138. The actual confirmed deaths are only 792. So when I'm reading these numbers, I'm only reading the confirmed. So if we look at this, again, Guinea, confirmed 481 deaths. Liberia, 792 deaths. Sierra Leone, 557 deaths. Nigeria, 7 deaths. So we can see, and Congo, 42 deaths. Senegal, 0 deaths. And they only have 1 confirmed case there. Congo, they have 30 confirmed. Nigeria is 19 confirmed. Sierra Leone, 1,816 confirmed. And we can see right now that it is only in these countries, and it has not migrated to any of the other countries that they're bordering whatsoever. But we had a man fly from Liberia, come to the U.S. that is infected. Very interesting. Now, I know the CDC is out there saying that this is not airborne right now, and they removed it from their site that it was airborne. But in a laboratory, they've done a test between primates where infection through small particle aerosols has been demonstrated in primates where they could catch Ebola from one to the other without touch. It was through the air. Now, of course, they haven't done this test on humans, but if it happens through primates, you can pretty much assume that it probably does happen here through human and through the air. And we can see right now that the CDC right now is kind of hiding this. They don't want this coming out right now. They're just saying, no, it's only through touch. But they did have it at one point on their website, and they kind of removed it completely. Now, right now, as we know, funeral homes are being given instructions on how to deal with Ebola cases. We understand there's a lot of hazmat suits that were ordered just in case. We understand they have already set up these CDC locations around the country. And we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully, because if this thing starts to spread very quickly and these people are in quarantine and they're not really touching people, we will have proof that, yes, it is airborne, and this is part of their agenda. And as we know, they want to shrink the population around the world, because this is part of their agenda. Shrink the population, take away the rights of the people, control the people, get them into war to shrink it even further, and then have a one world government. I mean, this is pretty much their whole agenda at this point. And we can see right now none of it is really going their way. But again, they do not want to be blamed for this entire collapse of the entire system, so they need other angles to make everyone look in a different direction. And we see this happening with the war being started. We see Ebola right now being pushed. We can see them creating laws, taking away the rights of the people, getting ready to go after those domestic terrorists. So all of this is starting to really ramp up at this point in time, and we're starting to see the stock market start to fluctuate now. It's up, and it comes straight down, it goes up, and we've had a very bad day in the market today. And of course, the stock market is the last indicator of what the real economy is doing, and we can see what the real economy is doing. It is collapsing right in front of us. Now, the World Health Organization, they're out there and they are saying that countries should put into place contingency plans to fight Ebola, because if it does break out across Europe and into the United States, they need to have some type of plan. And as of right now, it doesn't seem like the U.S. has any type of plan whatsoever, because look how the government handles pretty much everything. Katrina, anything that's naturally occurring where they really didn't create the false flag event, the government really can't handle everything. Look, they try to put up a website for health insurance, and they want to manage your health insurance. Why would we trust them to handle anything? They can't even do anything right. But you can see right now, everyone is going to have to take care of themselves. And I know there's a lot of people writing me, telling me about colloidal silver. I decided to order some of it because, again, I've read a lot of things about it, and I'm not taking any chances whatsoever. I'd rather take that than a vaccine from the U.S. government. Now, I'm not recommending this. I do not sell it whatsoever. I'm just doing it for my family to keep them safe. Things that I've read about it and things that I know that people have been writing into me, this seems like something that I want to have on hand in my preps. So I have ordered it, and you might want to do the same. Okay, now, we understand that the United States is sending troops into West Africa. It looks like there's an additional 1,400 soldiers headed to Liberia, and we have to remember the U.S. ambassador to Liberia saying, yes, all these troops are not to take over the government or oust them. I promise. And pretty much we've seen this before, where the government officials tell you one thing and they do the actual opposite. And like I said, this seems like a tactic they're using in West Africa. Now, of course, they're dealing with something that could be spread all around, and it's very hard to control, and we can see already they're losing control of it. Now, in Hong Kong, it looks like the protesting is continuing. Student leaders of the pro-reform protests in Hong Kong have come up with the ultimatum to the city's chief, saying if he doesn't step down, they'll start storming the government buildings. The protesters have already fulfilled their earlier threat of stepping up demonstrations in case their demands aren't met. Now, we can see right now that all of this is looking like the U.S. government is ginning this whole thing up. They're behind it. They're trying to destabilize the government there. They're trying to remove the government in China. And if they are successful in doing this, this would really devastate the BRIC nations, because they would just pretty much remove it. And you can see why they're doing this, because China right now is the enemy. They have a lot of gold. They're making deals all around the world to become the reserve currency of the world. And the United States central bankers now see China as the enemy, and you can see right now that they are trying to push this as hard as they can. And if we look at the number of countries that the United States went into and tried to overthrow the elected government and put in place a puppet regime, it is a lot. And the last ones we've seen have been Ukraine and the Middle East. Russia is out there, and they're saying yes, that the manifestations against government oppression is organized by an American plot to cause mischief in the region. Russia have declared the protest in what protesters are calling the Umbrella Revolution an organized plot in which agitators trained by the United States government are trying to foment hatred against China. And we can see that the United States does this to many, many countries. Kerry is out there once again saying that Hong Kong should show restraint. This is exactly what they said in Ukraine. The government in Ukraine should show restraint. You should listen to the people. The people have the right to speak. Democracy, democracy, freedom. And of course, the Chinese counterpart said, listen, mind your own business. This is an internal affair. We know what you're doing. We know what you're up to. So we'll take care of it. Now, the big question here is, remember, and let's keep this in the back of our memory as our government officials out there tell those people, democracy, democracy, the people have the right, because when it's the people's turn inside the United States, we need to repeat this back to them. Democracy, the people have the right to speak out. We have the freedom. If we don't agree with the government, we have the right to remove them. This is what we need to use on them and use it back at them when the time is right. Now, it looks like the U.S. is launching joint exercises with the Philippines. 5,000 American and Philippine troops were mobilized for the annual Philippine bilateral exercises held on the island of Palawan near the disputed Spratly Islands, which are claimed variously by Philippines, China, Taiwan, Vietnam. China right now is looking at these drills and saying, yes, we understand what they're doing. This is clearly done to target China, and these exercises are to contain China. And they're looking at the situation, and they realize what's going on. They realize the central bankers are coming after them. They realize they're going to be ginning up war. They realize eventually World War III will start, and they will be in it. Russia will be in it. North Korea will be in it. Pretty much the entire world will be in it, because this is the way the central bankers want it, because they need to cover up what is going on here, and that is the full collapse of the system. Now, it seems that Russia has irrefutable evidence that the National Guard in Ukraine and the ultranationalist right sector fighters are responsible for the murder of people recently discovered in mass burial sites near Donetsk. And, of course, this seems like to be a pattern where every time the U.S. government overthrows a government and puts in a puppet regime, we start to see strange things where they kill people, they behead people, they have mass graves, they have torture sites, they have prisons, and we see this happen quite often. And what we're seeing is a lot of the countries, especially those countries where the people are taking back their countries, they're starting to find out that yes, there were prisons and torture areas where the puppet regimes held people. One of these are in Yemen, and we can see that the Yemeni people who've pretty much taken over a military base have found underground tunnels and illegal prison cells in the capital, and they're saying yes, this is where they did everything, and this is from the puppet regime. We also see in Ukraine that we're seeing mass graves all over the place. Also in Ukraine, what we're seeing is that Ukraine is receiving new armored vehicles during a visit to a base for the National Guard soldiers. Yatsenyuk was inspecting them, taking a look at the new armor. Some of them are being shipped out to the east, to the front lines. And the new equipment includes armored vehicles with off-road capability, and the nearly 5,000 Ukrainian troops at the base also received new winter gear. So we can see all these new weapons, new equipment are starting to funnel into Ukraine, and who knows, maybe they're building up to push something ahead here, because it's starting to really look like this. Now, in Lebanon, we understand that the Lebanese people are still fighting the Lebanese puppet government, and the Lebanese minister is out there, and he's cautioning the people of Lebanon to be very careful what you're seeing on television media against being manipulated by the people of Lebanon. You know, those militant groups, the Islamists. Those terrorists are using different weapons in their war on Lebanon, including the media weapon. And their media war is intended to weaken the morale of the army and that of the people, to sap public confidence in the army's capacity to confront aggression and defend the nation. And of course, what they're saying is, listen, people are starting to speak out now. It's on the internet, it's on the media, and it's affecting the army at this point. And they're saying, wait a minute, these are our people that are rising up. These aren't terrorists. Why are we fighting against them? And they're losing the narrative of what is going on, and the soldiers are looking at the people saying, wait a minute, are we on the right side here? And this is what they're trying to stop. Now, it looks like France is going to deploy 3 more fighter jets and a frigate to fight the Islamic State, and the new NATO leader says that the alliance with Turkey is in full strength here, and if Turkey is attacked, they will back them up under Article 5. NATO must be very clear that it would come to Turkey's aid if Turkey was attacked. Now, why are they saying this at this point? Well, we know they've placed their tanks on the border with Syria. We understand something is going to happen that will allow Turkey to join the fight. Now, we understand in Turkey they're voting on if they should join the Islamic State fight. This is going to happen on October 2nd. And again, with NATO, Article 5 says if one nation is attacked, all the other nations join in. And again, we have to remember what happened with Erdogan, where he tried to set up that false flag event, where he tried to sneak his military soldiers into Syria with missile launchers. He wanted them to fire missiles back into Turkey to make it look like Syria was attacking, so NATO can implement Article 5, and they were able to pretty much invade Syria. But this whole thing got blown out of the water with Twitter and YouTube, and the whole false flag event completely fell apart. But Erdogan is out there, and he's saying that Turkey would fight against the Islamic State and other terrorist groups in the region, but it would stick to its aim, and that aim is to remove Assad from power. That is our main goal. And the United States is focusing its efforts on defeating the Islamic State right now, but they're saying that their main goal, the United States central bankers' main goal, is still and has not changed. Their position is to remove Assad. We continue to believe that Assad regime is a magnet for terrorism. Despite the U.S. position that Assad must go, the current priority is the Islamic State. Well, no, it really isn't. What they're doing is they're targeting the infrastructure of Syria to weaken it. And we're seeing right now, coming out of Veterans Today, there's an analyst, and they're saying that Washington intends to inflict such damage to the economic and industrial infrastructure within Syria that any Syrian government after fighting will be so weakened that it will be vulnerable to further attacks. And this is exactly what they're doing, and they're going to continually do this. Now, we understand the Pentagon and the Obama administration is saying that, no, we are not hitting any type of civilians in the area whatsoever. And then they came out with a statement like this: a U.S. policy requiring the military to avoid civilian casualties as much as possible does not apply to the current operations in Syria and Iraq. And this is coming from a White House official. The policy will not apply to the U.S. strikes in Syria. The near certainty standards only applies when we take direct action outside areas of active hostility. So basically what they're saying is we can hit civilians, it makes no difference, and they are hitting civilians. There are a lot of civilians that are dying from these bombings, and this is a lot worse than the beheading, the alleged beheadings, the fake ones, than what the Islamic State, pretty much used as their propaganda. Basically, the U.S. government, Israel, UK used as their propaganda, and we can see they're killing innocent people with these bomb runs. But as we know, this is all being done to weaken the infrastructure of Syria, and they're going to continue doing this. Now we have Congressman Rangel, and he is now calling for a war tax, and he wants the draft to be voted on. So we can see they are definitely prepping for war. They're definitely prepping to implement the draft, and the draft is not just going to be men, it is going to be women, so it's both going to be drafted at this time. And we have to say at this point, when this starts going really much further and it's accelerating, we need to put a stop to all of this, and there will be a point in time that we will have the ability to say, no, we are not going along with this, and we need to get everybody, as many people as we possibly can, and it has to be in the millions, to go to Washington, and people in Spain, people in UK, people in Germany, people in France, people in Australia, people in Canada. We need to do this all at the same exact time to let the central bankers know and the government, we are not fighting your war. Now it looks like the Israeli intelligence community is trying to convince everyone that Assad still has a huge amount of sarin gas, and he's holding on to it right now until the very last minute, because what they said was they believe that the sarin gas weapons would likely be deployed if the Assad regime faced an imminent threat to its survival. So you can see what they're planning here. They're going to use this as a false flag event to show that Assad still has chemical weapons, and this could be used to say, now we can go into Syria. And we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully, because they're continually out there pushing this story that he still has chemical weapons and he's going to use them, and they don't know where he's going to use it, but it's going to be a last-ditch attempt. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.